Over the last week, we've had some pretty ordinary weather. We've had a couple of fronts that have come through. We've had some heavy rain, heavy cloud, and wind. The wind has been extraordinary. So there really hasn't been much opportunity for me to get out to take some landscape photos. This morning I woke up and things are a little bit different. We've still got some cloud. We haven't got the rain, although they are forecasting some showers. But the wind has died down. So I have got up early. I've come down to the Swan River, down in South Perth, and I'm going to try and capture the city skyline of Perth. And I'm hoping to experiment with a couple of different exposures, which I'll talk through. And see what sort of images we can get. I've set up. My composition is very simple. I've just got the city skyline in front of me, and where the buildings are the tallest, that's taking up the majority of my shot. So I've got the polarizer on. I've got the sun's coming up on my right hand side here. I've got the polarizer on to cut through any glare that I'm getting on the water. That's also probably reducing the light just a tad. But other than that, I've got nothing else that's reducing the light. So my camera settings at the moment is f9, and my exposure is 1/8 of a second. So I'll take a shot, and then we can add the filters on from there. So what I might actually do is just reduce the exposure a little bit. So now I've got a shutter speed of 1/10 of a second, and we'll take that shot as well. So as you can see from my histogram, I'm getting all the details in my shadows, and I'm not clipping any highlights as well, so that's good. So we're going to start by putting on the little stopper and seeing how much that's going to reduce, and seeing what effect that has in the water in the foreground and the slow moving clouds in the sky. I've got the little stopper on the front of the lens over here with my polarizer. This exposure is going to be 6 seconds, still on f9. So that 6 seconds will really smoothen out the water in the foreground. I don't know whether it's going to capture any of the movement of the clouds, but we'll have to wait and see. So let's take that shot. So I've taken the shot with the little stopper on there. That seemed to turn out quite nicely, smoothen things out, but now we're going to go to the next step and put the 10 stopper, the big stopper. That allows me to extend the exposure time even further. I've had a quick look at the little card that comes with it, and I can get anywhere between 1 to 2 minute exposure using that. So I've got my phone here that I'll use to measure that. I need the other hand for the remote trigger, and I haven't got a third to hold in this camera, so I'm going to put you down. But this doesn't make particularly good viewing anyway, so I'll show you the results. I've grabbed that image with the 10 stopper. That seemed to work out nicely. So now I've done the 10 stopper, I've put the 6 stopper back on as well as the 10 stopper. So I've got 16 stops in front of the lens plus the polarizer. So I'm going to have to experiment a little bit with the exposure. I'm going to have an exposure time of roughly 5 to 10 minutes. But I'll have to play around with it and work out what the ideal time is. I'm not going to bore you with that bit, I'll just show you the end result. I'm back home now because I want to show you how I went about editing one of the images. The image I've chosen is this one. I captured this using the big stopper, which reduces the light around about 10 stops. What I'm trying to go for here in this image is take the softness of the cloud and the glassiness of the water in the foreground and contrast that with the sharpness of the buildings across the city. So I'm going to just jump into it and start. That is what the final image looks like. This is what the image actually looked like straight out of the camera. And the first thing that you'll notice is the color cast. And that's not unusual, particularly from a big stopper. We can correct that quite simply with some of the basic adjustments as well. But before I do that, the first thing I'm going to do is go down to lens corrections and apply the removal of chromatic aberration and enable the profile corrections for this particular lens, which by the way was the 24 to 70. The next thing I'm going to do is straighten the image. It's slightly crooked, so I'll go up to the cropping tool, I'll grab the straightening tool, and then I'm going to just put the straightening tool across the riverbank there. And then just to check that, I'll apply the grid, and yep, sure enough, that's pretty straight, so I'm happy with that. I'll crop the image once I've finished the rest of the adjustments. So let's get rid of this color cast. So one of the first things I'll do here is adjust the white balance, and as I've talked about in previous videos, I apply the auto setting here because I think it's just a better place to start. And that's taken most of the blue out, which is excellent. I can increase the temperature here and you'll see that it's taking out more of the blue. Now I'm pretty happy with it, yeah, around about there, maybe 11,000. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Onto the tone. Again, I'm going to apply the auto setting and see what it does. Now that's pretty good. I'm happy with the exposure. I might come back and adjust the contrast. The highlights I might bring down just a little bit, but not too much. I'm going to adjust the light in the sky in a second. And the shadows I might just bring up a fraction. Yeah, bring that to 20. Clarity I'm going to move, but I'm not going to overdo it. Say 10 to 15. The vibrance, I might increase that to, yeah, 25. Looks good. Now before I go any further into the tonal curve, I just want to balance out the sky and the foreground. You'll notice that the sky is still brighter and I didn't use a graduated filter. I could have, but I decided not to. That's easily fixed by using the graduated filter here in Lightroom. And because my horizon is already straight, when I apply this, and to get the filter straight, I hold the Shift key down and I pull down to about there. I want to darken, but I want to probably darken a little bit further, so I might just keep going. Yeah, that's pretty balanced. About there. That's all I want to do with that filter, so we'll close that and we'll go on to the tonal curve. There's heaps of choices here, but I'm going to go for a medium contrast. That just brings out a little bit more detail in those buildings, and you can see that I'm starting to get a little bit more detail in the clouds as well. This was taken over a long exposure, so I'm not going to get a heap of detail in the clouds, but just a little bit of tonal variation will just will set the image up nicely. Now I'm going to come down to the color adjustment, and of course I'm going to jump straight into the black and white and apply the black and white. All of these other colors I'm quite happy with. It's just the blue I might adjust down a little bit. You can see that as I'm moving it left to right, it just brings out a little bit more in the clouds, but I don't want to overdo it. So again, I'll probably stop around about, I wouldn't want to go any further than 20. So that looks good. I'm going to skip over split toning straight into sharpening. I'm going to apply a little bit of sharpening here, but not too much. So what looks good? Yep, that looks good. Let's not go over 60. So what I don't want to sharpen is a cloud in the sky or any of the water in the foreground. So the best way to do that is use my mask and slide that up. If I hold down Option on the keyboard, you can see where the mask is being applied. Where it's white, the sharpening effect will take place. So I'm happy with that. That's around about 50 for the masking. Don't need to use any luminance to reduce the noise. And we're back here with the lens correction. Now I might just adjust the vignetting, just see what that does. It just brings that in a little bit, which is actually quite nice. So yeah, I'm going to take out the vignetting correction for the lens. I'll keep on going down. Now, I've noticed on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side that the buildings are not entirely vertical. So I want to just adjust that, and a new tool that's been added to Lightroom is the transform tool. So I'm going to use this vertical tool and just adjust that just slightly. And you can see there with the grid that, yeah, now you can see on the left hand side and on the right hand side that the buildings line up a little bit better with the grid lines there as a guide. So yeah, I'm happy with that. We'll move on. Okay, one of the last adjustments is the effect. I might come back and adjust the vignetting, but I will add a little bit of dehaze. So let's apply that. Again, I don't want to overdo it. That's probably a little bit too much. Yep, let's leave it there. So that's just 7 for dehaze. That's good. Now what I want to do is brighten up some of the buildings just a little bit because I want them to kind of pop in the image. So to do that, I'm going to grab my brush tool here. I'm going to choose Dodge or Lighten as my effect, which just effectively increases the exposure. I might add a little bit more exposure there. Now I'm going to adjust the size of my brush tool and just carefully but quickly go over some of these areas here. So I'm happy with that. Now if I want to just check where I've applied the mask, I just hover over the anchor there and you can see which parts of the image has been affected, and for now that will do. So not only can I just increase the exposure for that area, I might also adjust the shadows. So I might bring the shadows out. If I just adjust it left to right, you can see that if I increase it to the right hand side, say to 25, maybe even to around about 60, might add a little bit of black just to compensate. But now the dehaze, I might just pull that to the left this time. Yep, they're popping nicely. and my clarity, I'm going to add that as well, but again, not overdoing it. I'm not going to touch anything else. Might just add a little bit of sharpness. Great. I'm going to close that. Just before I crop the image, I'm going to add a vignette. Now, instead of coming down to the bottom here and adjusting the vignette here, I'm going to apply it through the radial tool. So I click the radial tool and draw out a oval here, move it along to the side. Now it's over the edges of the image, but I've done that on purpose because I kind of want two lines that are almost straight, just with a slight curve on it. Might just increase it slightly and bring it up. Great. Now to this I'm going to darken. Lovely. And I'm just going to play around with the exposure here, just making sure that, yeah, that's the effect that I want. If I click done, that's it there. I'm happy with that. So finally, all I've got to do is crop it. Now I come up to the crop tool. Now I could crop it with a 16:9, which will give me a crop similar to that, and I'd probably want to adjust it so that the either the buildings are in the middle. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, not particularly happy with the way that looks. No, I'm happy with the buildings kind of smack bang in the middle there like that. Maybe a little bit lower. So yeah, I could go with that, but I thought a more effective crop for this, given the composition of the city through the middle, was a more panoramic crop, so a 3:1. With this I will get the horizon, the bank of the river, right on the bottom third, and the building, that tall building there, on the third coming in from the left hand side. Yeah, so that's pretty much the final image. Now I could play around with that a little bit more, adjusting the vignette or the effect. There's a couple of things that I could do. I haven't applied a vignette using this bottom tool, but I could easily do that for a little bit more of an effect. Again, I don't want to overdo it. Add 15, bring in the midpoint a little bit, and then increase the feathering, so that just adjusts it again. And that's actually not too bad either. That just brings up that mood a little bit, increases the tone variation within the cloud, and gives it a nice feel. That's where I'll finish. That's where I'll leave that image. If you like this video and it's your first time to my channel, then please subscribe down below so you're notified when I upload my next video. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, but until next time, thanks very much for watching.